Hello everyone, welcome back. After discussing the definition and the declaration and the details of a function that we need to keep that in mind, the next topic that we're going to talk in today's session is about local and global variables. So a local variable is a variable defined inside a function or a block and is only accessible within that function or block. So once the function or block is done executing, the variable is destroyed and its value is no longer available. This is a definition of a local variable. And when we are talking about a global variable, we define it like it is defined like outside of all functions, usually at the top of the program, and can be assessed and modified by any function in the program. So it's important to differentiate these two concepts. In order to explain this, we brought you an example here. Let's recall how a function works and then we dive into this example. So we need to define a function. We need to declare a function before the main function that we know from before. In parentheses are the input of the function. In this case, it's empty, so there is no input. And before the name of the function, we have the output of the function. So the output of this function is void, so it's not going to return anything. These we already know from previous lessons. So then after declaration, we need to define the function. We have two options for this. Either it can be defined where it is declared like before the int main function, or it can be defined after the int main function. So we had the examples of both situations in previous lessons. So here I'm going to declare it before the int main function, and I'm going to define it also there before the int main function. So what it's going to do is that in the int main, so the program, when we run the program, only the int main function is going to be executed. And if I'm calling a function within the int main function, that function that is called is going to be executed. For example, if I simply remove this line, nothing is going to be executed because we didn't call the function so it can be executed. So it's an important thing to know. Because the function is declared and defined here, it doesn't mean that it's going to be executed. If you want it to be executed, you need to call it in the main function. Otherwise, it wouldn't just work. Let's try. We will see. You see, nothing is being executed because we are not calling anything. So it's important to call whatever function you're just trying to use, call it after declaration and definition. So we are just calling here the display function. And when we execute the code, it's going to come here. And then within that function, in that parenthesis, in that bracket, we have the definition of the function. So in the definition of the function, we are initializing one integer value called local num, and it is equal to 10. And then we are printing this value local num. Okay, so this local num is a local variable. Let me just change the name, maybe it would be confusing. I would say int x, for example. Okay, it's going to, so the number is, okay, so this x variable that is an integer is a local variable to this function. Okay, why? Because it is declared and initialized in this function, so it makes sense that it's not accessible from here. Why? Because it is not initialized and declared here. So what the program would see if we want to use something in the int main function, what it would see is the only thing that are here. And since it is not here, this integer value, is not defined in here, it is a local variable for this function. We can have another, let me just add another function here. So I would say num2, and I define y, and it is equal to 20, and it is okay. Now we have one main function, and then we have one void function and another void function. So we can have like tens of hundreds of functions, so it doesn't matter. So this integer that is called y, and it is initialized and set to 20, is a local variable to this function, and this y is not accessible neither in this function nor in the main function. So it's a local variable, so it makes sense. And also for this x is neither accessible in here nor here. So let me just run. Here in the int main, we are calling the display number. So display number is this function. We are assigning 10 to integer x, and then we are printing it. So it is printing x. However, if we are trying to like print x directly here, it is expected to have some errors. You see, even we cannot even run it. We have error here. So why? Because it says use of undeclared identifier. It makes sense because x is defined here, so it's a local variable for this function and not for the main function. So this is the concept of local variable. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the global variables.